Hi, and welcome. You're listening to the X22 Report. My name is Dave, and this is episode 980B, and today's date is May 25th, 2016, and the title of the episode is, The Elite Are Preparing to Chip Everyone, Starting with Our Children. Let's get into the economic collapse, political, and geopolitical news. Now, we realize at this point that the administration, the U.S. government, wants to take power away from the people, away from Congress. And we can see by the actions of the Obama administration, they've been doing this. They've been doing it with executive orders. They bypass Congress. They've been doing this with memorandums. They bypass Congress. And a Harvard law professor and a former Obama administration official, Cass Sunstein, has written about a Supreme Court decision which affirms a 1997 case that determined that the executive branch agencies have the authority to interpret the meaning of the regulations they write. What this means is that the legislative branch and the judicial branch of government will have no role in either writing or interpreting what are de facto laws written by the executive branch. It represents a huge power shift, and it puts the power in the hands of the bureaucrats, who in most cases answer to no elected authority. This right here is deep state. It's where the elites rule over us. And we can see as time goes on, they're trying to bring in more and more power to the executive branch. They don't want Congress to make decisions. They don't want people to make decisions. They want this part gone. They want full control of the people, the decision making. Basically, it's dictatorship. We see Erdogan is doing this out in Turkey. He will have full control of every single decision. We see Obama actually pushing this idea and continually pushing this idea. And of course, Congress is letting him. Congress needs to stand up to him, or any president for that matter. But they need to take control of the population, and they've been doing it very, very slowly. They've been changing the way our children learn. They brought in Common Core, teaching them things that they want the children to know from the perspective of government. That's really what it's about. The perspective where the rights are really privileges, where they can be taken away. And we know in the end they want a cashless society. Now, think about this. This was on corporate media, on one of the news stations, where they were talking about microchips. And we know today that cats and dogs, they get microchips. So if they go missing, you can track them down very easily. Now, these chips, they're very, very small. They're RFID chips. They can be surgically implanted. And, of course, the corporate media is out there saying that, they're perfectly safe. There's no effects from your body. Nothing happens to your body. There's absolutely nothing that can go wrong. The implant is perfectly safe. And now they're using the idea of why children should get this. Now, back in the 70s and 80s, when we had kidnappings, and then we come to find out it was the divorced, father or mother that took the child, everyone went in, and I remember this, everyone was fingerprinted, because this was going to keep you safe. They'd be able to find you if something happened. Well, that's only if you left a fingerprint someplace, but otherwise they couldn't find you. Now, they do this, and they scare everyone, and they use safety. They're doing the same thing today. They're saying we need to keep our children safe. And one way of doing this is putting these chips into their bodies. This way, if they're kidnapped or they go missing somehow, some way, we can track them very easily. And of course, it sounds good, but then there's other complications. Because eventually what's going to happen, and think about this, Once they have our children chipped, and this goes on for another generation, the population is now all chipped. It's a very slow process, but they will be able to get everyone chipped because everyone entering the school system will be chipped. Then what they will do, they'll throw on top of this a cashless society. Remember, this is what they want. They want everything electronic. If you do not have a chip, guess what? You can't purchase anything. They're not going to be cards. They're not going to be chips in your cards. Everything that is done will be from the chip in your body. So you can see where they're headed with this. You can see their thought process in this and how slowly they will move to do this. And of course, they're saying that this is going to happen very soon. And they're saying that everyone should just accept it. And we have to remember, last month, there was a secret meeting that involved about 100 executives from some of the biggest financial institutions in the United States, and it was held in New York City. And during this meeting, a company known as Chain unveiled technology that transforms US dollars into pure digital assets. Start putting all of this together. And this shows you the direction that they're going in. And eventually what's going to happen is they're going to include your medical information. They're going to use it to track you. They're going to use this where they can say, okay, you can pay your bills. You can access a building. And at this point, they are making the move to convince the population that this is a good thing. And this is the way they keep track of their sheep. Think about a farmer who has a herd, who puts a branding, or in many cases now, they chip their animals so they don't go missing. This is exactly what the elite, the central bankers, are doing to the people around the world, not just in this country, but around the world. This is going to be everywhere. This is their major plan. And as a people, we should not accept this. As a people, we should say, you know something, if I don't want something in my body, I don't have to have something in my body. I have rights. And if we don't make a stand, and we don't push back, they will get their way. Now, out in Germany, we see that the people of Germany, 77% of them, don't want their leader bowing down to Erdogan's demand. Now remember, the EU decided that Turkey is not ready for visa-free, to have all their countrymen in Turkey to travel throughout Europe. And it looks like right now that the people of Germany and many of the other European nations are saying, listen, don't be bullied by Erdogan. Stick to your guns. And we see Erdogan, on the other hand, is now pushing back, saying, listen, if this doesn't go through, I don't want to see the other options. I will release the refugees and cause havoc throughout the European Union. And we're going to have to watch this situation very carefully to see what exactly happens. Now, Obama is making his rounds out in the Asian Pacific, and he was in Vietnam now. He has traveled to Japan, and right now, there are mass protests that have been greeting Obama, saying that they want U.S. troops to get out, and people are protesting, and this is on Obama's arrival, because we know there's a huge fight about this base in Okinawa, where they want to create a new base to bring in more sophisticated weaponry, and we see right now Obama's not being greeted the way he normally would be, because the people are very, very upset. Pakistan right now is very angry with the United States. And the United States, they use drones to hit a Taliban leader, Mullah Akhtar Mansour. And Pakistan is saying that the United States violated their sovereignty. And Pakistan is out there saying, listen, you violated our sovereignty. This is a major issue that has been raised with the United States in the past, and we want this stopped. You need to work with the government before you go ahead and bomb areas in our country. But the United States government central bankers, they don't care about that. They need to maintain control of their puppet government. They need to maintain control of the country. And they will do whatever they have to keep their system alive. Right now, U.S. military troops, they're trying to persuade Obama to hunt down Taliban leaders again in Afghanistan. They want air power. They want to fight once again in this area because things are getting out of control. And we know right now, when Obama said troops were coming home from Afghanistan, that is fake, phony, and false. They lied to us once again. We knew this was because Karzai wouldn't sign the bilateral security agreement, which gave immunity to the soldiers. And once his term was up, Kerry went in, made sure they got the person they wanted as president, as prime minister. And what they did is they had that person sign. And then all of a sudden the troops didn't have to leave. And this is exactly what happened there. Now, out in Syria, we know that the U.S. continually blames Assad and Russia for hitting civilians. And they say, they're hitting hospitals, they're hitting refugee camps. They killed 5 civilians, 10 civilians. Well, a watchdog just released its report, its casualty report, from the U.S.-led coalition and all the airstrikes they've been doing. And the U.S. has killed 417 civilians inside Syria. 10 times as many civilians as the Pentagon has confirmed. So again, the United States government central bankers, they're not telling us the truth. They are hitting civilians, and they're killing many of them. This whole entire thing was built up on illusion, just like the economy. Now, the Russian Air Force and the Syrian army, they have wiped out a third of the Islamic State terrorists. And that is about 28,000 or 35% of the 80,000 fighters that are in Syria. They were completely eliminated. And we see right now that the United States moderate rebels, they have taken control of 3 farms in northern Raqqa. Now, of course, they said there was a fierce battle with the Islamic State, and they were able to take over the lands. No, what's really happening there is they're trading it off. Okay, we know that Russia and Syria, they're coming in. They're coming into Raqqa. They're going to hit the Islamic State. Now, the Islamic State is the proxy army of the United States government central bankers. We need to protect these areas. So all of these people now will be removed, and the moderate rebels will come in. See, the moderate rebels have this area. There's no need to attack. And this is what they're doing around Syria. But what the problem is that the Syrian armed forces and Russia, they're moving too quickly and eliminating all these terrorists too fast for the U.S. to keep up. And we see at this point in time, this is why John Kerry was out there trying to place Al-Qaeda and other terrorist groups, in the exclusion list, so they wouldn't go after these people because they need some time to protect these areas, and it's a losing battle at this point. Now, Russia is giving the terrorist groups, al-Nusra, Al-Qaeda, the Islamic State, and any other terrorist group, their last warning to back away from certain areas, and they're giving a warning to the rebels saying, listen, you better remove yourself from where these terrorist groups are because we're coming in. If you do not remove yourself from these terrorist groups, you will be bombed. Now, of course, we're going to hear the West complain. We're going to hear the government officials here in the United States come out and say that Russia is bombing the moderate rebels. Well, Russia decided, you know what? We will give you a warning. And if you don't abide by this, guess what? You are going to be hit. Now, the Syrian army right now is on high alert in the Aleppo region because Russia is reporting that there are 6,000 al-Nusra militants that are flowing in from Turkey into Aleppo. They are there now, and it looks like they are fully mobilized to conduct future offenses in this area. And we're going to have to watch that situation very, very carefully. Moscow right now, they have submitted UN documents They are naming Turkish companies that export explosive materials to terrorists in Syria. And right now, we see the documents. They have been given to the UN Secretary General Ban Ki-moon, and they prove that many of the Turkish companies have exported these materials, and they say they have proof because they analyzed the chemical materials of the bombs when they seized them at the extremists in different cities, and they show they were manufactured in Turkey. And they have the proof, it's documented, and these were submitted to the UN. Now, we'll have to watch and see what happens with this, and we'll see if the UN does anything, because we know at this point that the US really controls the United Nations in what they do. We see out in Palmyra, the Syrian forces and the Russian forces, they are restoring the air base there to accommodate more aircraft, more helicopters. They're rebuilding it, and the rebuild process will be completed very, very soon. At the same time all of this is happening, we have to remember the U.S. is having a drill called Eager Lion, and there's 6,000 ground forces that are participating in this drill. The B-52s, they are flying on the Jordanian skyline, and everything is being done once again. Now, this is very interesting because we have seen this once before, actually twice before. Back in 2013, back in 2014, actually 3 times, 2015, where they had these drills in Jordan. They brought in all the military assets. They brought in a huge amount of ground troops. They were drilling at the same time of this year, and I know they have this every single year. This is on purpose, because when August comes around, guess what's going to happen? There's going to be a major offensive. So they're bringing the troops in. They're training them right now, because we're in May right now. June, July, August, we're going to see something occur. Congress leaves the Washington area. The Obama administration has the entire Washington area to himself. No one to argue with his decisions. And he will just do it because the Congress does not come back until after Labor Day. And this has been the pattern, and this is something that we need to watch. Now, something very interesting from Saudi Arabia came out from their daily published article in the Al Hayat. And the article was written by Saudi legal expert Khadib al-Shamari, claiming that the U.S. planned 9/11 to kickstart the global war on terror. Now, this is not really a surprise to all the people that are awakened. They realize that this is absolutely true. We know that many different governments were working with the U.S. government to do this. And al-Shamari claims that the U.S. government strategically holds information and action plans as bargaining chips to leverage powers in the Middle East. He claims 9/11 attacks are a prime example of this, saying that the U.S. used World Trade Center terror event to kickstart a global war on terror, selectively blaming whoever suited its needs at the time, and changing the enemy once they needed to go to a different location. And he says they went through Afghanistan, they went to Iraq, and now it's Saudi Arabia's time. And I have to agree with him that this is exactly what they've been doing. And we know this was an inside job. We know there were other foreign governments that were helping with this, MI6. We know it was Mossad. We know that Bush was involved in this. We know that the owner of the World Trade Center was involved in this. All of this was a team effort to scare the world into giving more control over to the governments, scaring the world and the U.S. into going off to war. And we can see they're still pushing this idea to this day. Now, Obama said something very interesting when he was visiting Vietnam. And he was talking about the elections. And he wanted to reassure the world that things are going to be okay after the 2016 race. Now, this is a very strange thing to say. What does he mean that things are going to be okay? I mean, is he saying that they already have the person's already selected who's going into the White House, and you don't have to worry about the elections at all? I mean, we know the elections are fixed. We know that certain people will not be allowed into the White House. If you're an outsider, you won't be allowed in. And if you are elected by chance because they couldn't manipulate it the way they wanted to, they'll get rid of that person. Or is he talking about something else happening during this period of time and everything will be okay? So this is a very strange statement to make, because he's been telling the world that the economy is improving, the United States is exceptional, the United States is a powerhouse. So why wouldn't everything be okay until after the 2016 race? Listen, everyone, thanks a lot for listening. Be well, be safe, and especially be prepared. Thanks a lot.